Young man, do you want to succeed, to expand beyond your horizons? If you want to be free, then you must learn to master yourself, your thoughts, feelings, your body and spirit. Master your subjective consciousness. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction. The world outside of yourself is ruled by those who are not ruled by their base instincts. Young man, go forth into the world after this. Meditate, contemplate, then plan and execute an action towards success. Take a risk, break the rules, and be disciplined within self.
in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What was behind the curtain? The face of evil lurking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make me get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make me get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Yes, indeed. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hear he. Come one, come all. Click that like button as you come into yet another episode of Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. And we're continuing today our 3-part session. Again, as you come in, click that like button and share the stream. This is where we talk about being better, doing better, achieving better, helping better, growing, being more productive and whatnot. How's it going, Dr. Thunder?
I'm all right, ma'am. How goes it for you?
All right as well. All right as well. 2024 is rolling nicely in and moving along. And with regards to productivity and stuff like that, what people tend to be feeling right now, most people, in terms of well, basically they feel a pinch in their wallet, Dr. Thunder, after December. Isn't that the typical kind of thing? I don't know if you were ever that person. In other words, back in your younger, less wise days, you were a little broker in a particular part of the year.
But a lot of people, that's kind of extended to now too. It's a combination of factors. So there's usually for freelance music work, we'll say, there's a dip from about the beginning of January all the way until mid-March, something like that. There's usually a dip. And what's happening, the lead attorney? But there's usually a dip in income from freelance sources this time a year. And of course, my son is 10, and so he's expensive, and he gets more and more expensive, and my wife has a hard time reining in all of the.
Nah, don't let Dr. Thunder fool you, because he's
wild and
he's
crazy
doing the private school flex. That's why his son's expensive.
Yeah, that's right. And he's in private school, so yes, there's a pinch still.
Yes, indeed. So we're continuing the review of a video, right? Again, about unlocking productivity. And this is like a summation from many books, which this particular individual has read. This is part 3. Part 1 was on my channel. Part 2 last week on Dr. Thunder's channel. But if I may just mention a couple of things regarding what has been gone over, right? Just a simple list. And then we'll play what you see on your screen here, which was the last thing we did last time, which is stay focused. But basically on the first part, he talked about setting that goal, breaking it down into objectives, and then structuring your calendar, right? The kinds of things which you would expect. And then on Dr. Thunder's channel last week, talked about setting up the main goal for the day. If you remember that, Dr. Thunder, like, hey, what are the 1 or 2 things that if done today will be a success? And this basically harkens back to number 1, which is setting goals, right? So setting goals was about long-term, medium, and short-term goals. And then when you get down to the day, you want to reframe the day as well as, okay, well, there these one or two things important, achieve them, that'll be great. It'll move the week along, that kind of a thing, right? And then he talked about getting started. And we know what that would be. Go ahead and check that part out again in Dr. Thunder's channel. So having the main goal for the day, getting started, and then staying focused. I'm going to just play a little bit about staying focused, and then we'll get right into it. Dr. Thunder, how's that sound?
Sounds great.
Excellent. Let's see here. I think it should be.
So at this point, we're sitting down to study for the chemistry exam or go to the gym or film the video, whatever the thing might be. And at this point, the key thing that you need to do for your productivity to really level up your productivity is, honestly, it's really simple. It's to just stay focused on doing the thing that you said you were going to do and not getting distracted, not trying to multitask, not trying to task switch, just doing the thing. There's some evidence that I saw recently that, like, apparently the average worker wastes 28% of their day in terms of efficiency because they're trying to task switch or because they're getting distracted. Over the course of 10 years, that's a whole, like, 3 years. Over the course of a 40-year career, that is a whole decade that we've wasted because we're getting distracted. That's just an insane amount of time to waste. And so you can level up your productivity by quite a lot by just getting good at focusing on the thing. This might involve turning your phone off or chucking it across the room or having it face down, out of sight, out of mind. It might involve turning on a focus mode on your computer so you don't see notifications. It might involve putting headphones in if you're in a coffee shop or if you're in a co-working space or something so that people don't necessarily interrupt you. Deep Work by Cal Newport is basically an entire book talking about how to focus. And so if you struggle with focus and you know personally that this is the step that you struggle with, then seek out some books, seek out some resources on how to stay better focused. Because if you can stay more focused, again, you're massively boosting your productivity. Now we come to step number 7, which is more of a kind of guiding philosophy throughout this whole system, which is find a way to make it feel good. I'm going to do another little plug for my book, Feel Good Productivity, here, because that's literally what the book is about. That the secret to productivity is not discipline, it's joy. And when we can find a way to make our work feel good, when we can find a way for our work to generate positive emotions, then we become more energized. And the fact that we're more energized means we're more productive, we're more creative, we're less stressed, but it also means we have way more energy to give to the truly important things.
Okay. And now we're into number 8 proper, right? And before we go on, we can already see the flavor of number 8, which is, and I know Dr. Thunder probably has a lot of skepticism already because it has feel good in the title, right? Find a way to make it feel good. I'm going to throw something at you, Dr. Thunder, see before he completes his case. So I think that basically he's stating sort of like an ideal equation, right? That he just stated that, okay, if it feels good, you're going to be energized. Agreed. You're energized, such and such and such. Yes, after all, we talk about productivity, right? Okay, so that makes sense. But it seems like an equation in an ideal situation. But how the hell am I going to produce feel good, Dr. Thunder? Right? How am I going to produce this joy or happiness or whatever when I have this deadline, when I have this paper that I'm writing, when I have this particular problem I need to solve, and such preparations? And so you agree that he has set up an ideal equation. In other words, it's plausible what he's saying, right? And then what are your thoughts initially, even though he hasn't made his case?
I threw open my mouth a little bit. No. Anyhow, yeah, when they start talking about the feel good stuff, so there's different approaches to this problem. One of the approaches is an endless seeking out of new flavor of the month, new ways to keep yourself happy, new different ways to keep your mood up, whatever. It's a constant chasing that, or chasing inspiration. It's like it's either that, or you just acknowledge that you're not always going to be inspired. Perhaps most of the time you won't be. That's why it's even worth mentioning that something really felt inspired, is because it's not the common.
It is rare.
Yeah. So you could do that, and maybe grow up a little bit, recognize that you're likely not going to like doing certain things all the time, and maybe more often than not you don't want to do it, but you do it because you have to do it. So I did I've talked about this a little bit, but I did a presentation. It's really like a kind of a workshop, kind of master class, um, at a university, at another university. I was a guest, and it was called "Songwriting Without Inspiration." Okay, so and the point here was not to be derogatory towards people that have to write music and they're not inspired, but rather it was a really practical, okay, you don't have any new ideas, you're not just dreaming of melodies and waking up and it's just pouring out of you. Well, here are some things that you can do so that you don't have to rely on inspiration, on feeling good, on all of that kind of stuff. And I don't know.
Mhm.
It I understand if you could keep yourself at a level 10 euphoria, yeah, you would be like
Yeah.
ridiculously productive. That's totally true. If you could keep yourself focused,
Yeah.
you would be like be getting all kinds of stuff done. I don't know where that exists. I don't I
Yeah, in every instance that one thinks of, including the chemically induced ones, there's always a no biological free lunch implied in the sense that yeah, you're going to pay either weekly or something like whatever, right? You're not bionic. Maybe 20 years from now, when we start implanting all kinds of things and become half machine, and as long as you're plugged in, you're going to plug in your head at night to charge along with your phone. Well, you don't need your phone anymore at that point, but yes, 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 100%. And by the way, that songwriting without inspiration, it's a great kind of title, generally speaking, for this whole topic, right? Because one would think, hey, songwriting, inspiration, obviously, right? That kind of thing. Pain, art, inspiration, therefore. So hence, kind of looking, hey, songwriting without inspiration. That's kind of like, hey, if yeah, but you get my point. Now, I don't know. Uh, let me let you land.
Yeah. So one thing, this all of the great songwriters, great composers, great, musical creators. You um, you go through periods of time where you must produce, and you're not particularly inspired to do so. Um, and yes, we know the stories of you know certain musicians, using substances and stuff like this, and then other musicians thinking that the pathway to solving this problem is to get on the same smack that the other musician was on. And then, of course, invariably they discover that no, it's not the smack. Now, some people they thrive on sort of a bunch of chaotic stuff happening in their life, and they can become inspired by that, but I just don't know how healthy that is. So it doesn't seem like there's a good way to constantly keep yourself titillated, so that you can, you know, just continue to produce because you're so excited and I'm so into this, I'm excited. Let's go. Like I'm sorry. That's not, I don't know what that is. I just don't know what that is. Yeah.
So, and I don't know if in any of the, so this is the first number we're doing today, of which we hope to do three, right? I don't know if number 8 or 9 are going to involve the real energy question, because in the quote unquote equation, which he mentioned, right? The inspiration equals energy, then equals obvious productivity, insofar as you're able to stay focused. Uh, in that equation there, the energy part, right, is one that I know that, oh yeah, let's look at that. Let's work on that. Forget this inspiration as a source of energy. Let's talk about how you just have energy to begin with, right? And I don't know if he's going to do that, so I don't want to front load, but stay till the end definitely, because I'm going to maybe talk about my, pyramid kind of way of looking at this whole thing of quote unquote inspiration, right? Which is mainly about energy. You start from the bottom, which is basically you start from the body, you start with energy. Anyways, so let us continue and see. Let's allow him make his case, Dr. Thunder, about how productivity is not about discipline, but it's about joy.
Things that matter to us. And so the trick here really is to ask yourself that question: what can I do to make my work feel good? For me, that involves putting on the Lord of the Rings music in the background while I'm working. It involves maybe going to a coffee shop and treating it like more of an adventure. It involves reducing the seriousness with which I approach the work so that I feel like the stakes are lower. And generally, when the stakes are lower, it allows us to approach our work with more of a feeling of play. Can I find a way to bring people into the thing? Can I do co-working sessions with my friends or with my team? Can I do Zoom co-working sessions? There's this thing called London Writers Salon that does daily co-working 4 times a day writers hours, where you get on a Zoom call with like a couple of hundred other people and they share like a little bit of motivation around like 5.
And by the way, what he's talking about right now, we talked about in the last session on your channel, Dr. Thunder, talking about just tuning into some live stream or even hopping in on a panel while you're working, right? If it's the right kind of frequency of panel along with the right kind of task that you're doing, the distraction fits, then it's perfect. So anyways, but I'm going to pause here again. So far, he has created a category of examples, right? Of the kinds of things, right? And the reason I'm talking about the categories because we don't need to go through each individual one. I think we can clearly categorize by what he has said, right? Starting with things like music to switching the location, things of that nature. Now, just what are your initial thoughts, Dr. Thunder, right? In other words, one thought might be that under the heading of being inspired and whatnot, is this sufficient, or is this kind of like a letdown? It's like, oh, play music. It's like, yeah, it's like, yo, duh, I know, I already know that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you, playing music is not something that doesn't make me more productive. That makes me less productive. And the reason is because as soon as I turn the music on, I'm listening, I'm paying attention, I know what's going on. I'm, that's not a good thing. I'm dissecting it, so that's actually drawing, that draws energy from me. The other thing is people will use like music to go to sleep to. That's not something that I can do. My wife, if she wasn't married to me, she would probably do that every night. Right. And she has a TV on and stuff like this. And that actually, I've kind of gotten used to. Sorry, I've kind of gotten used to that, but that probably wouldn't be the best way for me to like sort of dial down. But as far as using music to try to create some sense of, I don't know, joy as he's describing it. Now here's the thing. It depends on what he means by joy. Okay, it does depend.
Does any of the examples he gave nudge you in other words, for example, I'm seeing this whole category of external effects, including if you there's a video that we did a while ago on this same show, Getting This Done, about like the colors in the room and certain types of things like that in your office, like if your office is set up in a particular way, you blah blah blah. So he is saying things in that area, ways of making your external environment pleasant, including other people and all these things he's saying, right? So in that whole category of ways of making your external environment pleasant, which might not lead to joy, but I think that's the definition you're looking for. Can you find in that the definition of what he's saying, right?
I don't think any of this stuff would have that effect on me. I'll put it that way. I think getting on live streams and with people sharing motivation, I think I would be just irritated by that. And I think that, and I don't know, and maybe that just maybe it sounds like I'm like a stick in the mud or something about this, or something like this guy can't be you can't what is it, you can't brighten this guy's day. I mean, he's just permanently going to be there. But I think listening to other people talk about, you know, what motivates and inspires them, or some aphorism or something, yeah, I think it would be more irritating to me. um if that sort of thing was going to actually impact me, it would have to happen in private, not with a bunch of people around, um, talking through their things and or whatever. I don't know. Maybe
It could
I'm
be
not
like
deep
a
there.
particularly curated content in this case where, let me take for example, and again, let me say what I don't think that this is the whole joy thing. This is not it, right? There's several categories that this particular thing fits in, including my whole kind of a task switching and location switching thing that I talk about, right? Like I work upstairs in the morning and I work downstairs in the evening. It just works better from the whole energy. Literally, I feel just staying stuck somewhere. Blah blah blah. Sitting, also I have a sitting desk. I have a standing desk. Uh, I talk about also going to Starbucks or sometimes going to the office, and so on and so on, the external office, right? Um, so it's not joy. Let me say that first of all, that he oversold, but he's not done yet though. He's not done yet, right? But then with regards to curated content that might inspire you in particular situations, if I'm feeling a particular way in terms of energy, particularly down or whatever, and I need to whip myself up, there's certain things that I do listen to, right? I talk about Dan Pena sometimes, perhaps sometimes jokingly, but uh, there are these groups. The general category is of grinding, right? But grinding at a high level with people who know what the hell they're talking about. So there are these particular groups that kind of go through deals. Deals are just being like mergers, acquisitions, buying, blah blah blah, just simple business deals, right? It's kind of like case studies with MBAs, but it's real stuff, and they're going through crunching certain numbers and blah 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 and this and that, but in a kind of a rather intense way. And I like that. In other words, it's like, okay, these people are grinding, I'm grinding. It's nice passive noise, right? They're talking about, annual recurring revenue and certain types of things like that. So that's not too distracting. So stuff like that in terms of this general making your external category nice. Do you do any of that at all?
Maybe what I was talking about, maybe it was last week, maybe it was the week before last, when I was talking about going to the gym, and even if I can't train, sitting on the couch, maybe doing some work there, because I kind of like the energy that's in the gym, and I don't want to get too far away from it, kind of a thing. Um, I suppose I could give that some that's not the worst thing in the world. Also, I think I could say I can see the sort of relationship between this sort of different places in your house kind of moving to different places, and or the maybe the effect that certain colors might actually have on your state of mind, on creating a certain kind of state of mind, and then from that state of mind you've noticed that you tend to be more productive there. I think you can um, make certain assessments, you can evaluate certain things, and oh, okay, okay. I guess I'll give it some. Now, back to the joy thing, and you're saying it's not joy that he's saying, and maybe you know, he'll say something that whatever, he's not done yet. But when I said it depends on what he means by joy, if what he means is some sort of superficial, easy to manipulate um, emotion, then I'm not gonna, like as in happiness, then I'm gonna say that's hogwash. But if he's more like this is stuff to cultivate uh, a more willing to deal with the hard stuff, still willing to struggle through because it's worth the struggle, you know, and joy in that sense where it's not as, weak as happiness, then okay, I think I can get with it. So, well, to some extent, I still have to hear the rest that he says, and he still did say several things that made me almost throw up red flags. So,
Okay. Let's see. Let him.
5 minutes at the start, 5 minutes at the end. Everyone just works for the other 50 minutes. And it just makes it way more fun. It makes the work feel more good than just sitting on my desk grinding away doing it by myself. So at whatever stage you are of the productivity journey, ask yourself that question, that guiding philosophy. How can I change my approach to this work such that it actually feels good? Right. Step number 8 is to then reach.
Okay, so let me add the kind of obvious and recently obligatory aspect, which is the personality aspect, right? In other words, um, there's a subset of personalities. The feeler aspect now will be the important part, where what you saw, Dr. Thunder, as remote, right? In other words, these particular effects, such as the color and the this and the that, it's kind of remote for you. Is more kind of close to them. They kind of operate in that feeling realm a little bit more. And yes, that particular set, that advice, will work for them. And if they can actually systematize, as he mentioned, these things about changing locations and finding the things that do inspire you and such and such and such, and sticking to it and be disciplined if you like to work in the field of grass or whatever it is that gets your juices going. It's about sticking to that plan and making sure that it works and doing it right. Uh, anyway, so just wanted to mention that, given that he has ended, so he did not make the case for joy, really. The best case I can give him is that yes, there are people for whom the far removed, kind of remote feeling aspect is more close. Anyways, not to be esoteric. Yeah, let's go. He's gonna talk about recharging your energy. So I did wonder if he was gonna get to the energy question, but let's see how he's going to talk about recharging your energy, right? But I think even before we go there, okay, since he's brought it up, okay, um, so diet, exercise, sleep, hydration, and breathing, okay, these things are the first things you should generally check, right? I like to use the analogy of the car. You have the oil, brake fluid, steering fluid, the basics, right, in there. You have to make sure that those things are okay and good, regular checkups or whatever. Or if it was back in the day when you had to do it more regularly and car engines were easy to operate, right? You would just go ahead and do it yourself and all these other kinds of things. Um, those are the basic things. You can't be worrying about, oh, well, maybe I need to put better fuel or I need to put a rocket engine in the back when there's no water in the radiator, right? So if you're not hydrated, if you're not getting the blood flowing with the right kind of movement, which you need to be doing every day and all these other kinds of things, then you're missing out on the huge part of this whole efficiency equation, right? You're missing out on the whole input part, which is the energy that you're going to put in and how it can be greatly maximized. It's not just a question of, oh, maybe I get a little bit more energetic. And Dr. Thunder, you can speak to this, being out of the gym, right? And not eating well, and maybe you're not hydrated well. The breathing one is more of you have to have a certain kind of presence and such. But I'll just mention that, yes, your breathing in any particular moment can be regulated. And you will find a lot of times that in certain states that you're in where you're just kind of like out of it, check your breathing. You'll find that your breathing is shallow. 9 times out of 10, 99% of the time, you can bet on it. If you have enough presence of mind to be able to notice that you're down or slow or whatever, and then check your breathing, you'll find that the breathing is shallow. So then you have to take deep breaths and do all those other kinds of things. Maybe, I don't know, get in an ice bath, which all those things have the same effect in the whole kind of vascular system and whatnot, right? But having said all that kind of hogwash, Dr. Thunder, what are your thoughts about that in terms of energy regulation, right from the body, hydration, exercise, and such? Common sense stuff, right?
Yeah, I think that stuff is all very important, and is the primary stuff to check. You know, drinking enough water, and I know you're big on water. You know, drinking enough water is like critical. I know that when I don't get enough water in, I mean, I just let's put it the other way. When I drink water, when I drink enough water, I feel good. Let's just keep it simple. I feel good when I do. When I don't drink enough water, and maybe I could even be drinking other fluids, but not water, I don't feel as good. I just don't. So water is important. Sleep is critically important. And you know, I've gone through some bouts with sleep you know, with not being
Insomnia-ish.
insomnia, yeah. And you know, that sucks because if you don't sleep, then there's not really much you can do because you want to talk about energy. I mean, you literally have no energy, and then you have to force yourself to still be functional, which is actually likely taking days of your life away. You know, so sleeping is critically important. And I had a bout with insomnia where month and a half, I like literally I was not sleeping. And it was so bad that during the day when I was supposed to be doing stuff, you know, I had stuff to do, I was like dozing off, like uncontrollably dozing off because I couldn't sleep at night. And that was all fueled by panic attacks and anxiety and all this other goofy stuff. And all this stuff it sort of breeds, it kind of collaborates and creates more momentum. And so if you can't get that thing figured out, I mean, I talk to my students about sleeping and making sure that they get themselves into some kind of routine. One of the problems with if you're having challenges sleeping, if say your spouse, or say if you have a roommate or whatever it is, say if their habits around bedtime are not conducive to you establishing a pattern, a consistent pattern, it can be extremely difficult to break up, you know, to to create a healthy pattern. A healthy pattern would be like you have a routine, you do the same things before you go to bed. You go to bed at the same time, you know. I go through a particular procedure. It's the same thing every time. Now there's other factors that I can't control because I'm married and she's doing other things. It would be better if we were both on sort of that same schedule, but we're not. Okay. So, but what I do is I come to bed. It's got to be like the same time, right? You know, disrobe, I sit down on the edge of the bed. I take my watch off, I take my electronic stuff off, I plug it in, I stretch my back, right? I pray, and I try to pray so I'm not hearing anything. So I may, if the TV's on in the room or whatever, I try to block my hearing so I'm not listening to the TV, so I can try to be isolated. right? So then I pray. Then after I pray, I lay back. I actually lay on my back,
Mhm.
and I do that for a period of time,
Mhm.
and then I start to feel myself getting tired, and I have my eyes closed, covers, and then when I'm ready to go to bed, then I turn over and I go sleep. So that's
Yeah,
the
to be silent, right.
yeah, that's the procedure, and maybe it's like, oh, that's not a big deal. Why do you need that? Well, the reason you need the habit is so that when you go through a period of time when you're having a hard time sleeping, maybe you're having more stress at your job, maybe you're dealing with more anxiety, maybe you're having some bad, you know, arguments or something with your spouse, and that's got you kind of on edge and you were already feeling like you didn't know if you were going to sleep good, then you can go through that same procedure and it's more likely that you'll be able to sleep. If
Mhm.
you just have a chaotic, whatever happens, I just work until I go to sleep. That's what I did up until I had this issue. I just worked until I basically passed out, you know? And so basically I was controlling when I was going to go to sleep based on how much work, how much effort I was putting in. And then it becomes really easy to mess that up by even something like taking a nap or dozing off at some point in time because I wasn't really controlling calming myself down to be able to go to sleep. I was basically just depleting all of the energy, so I had no choice. So if I take a nap and I actually have more energy left, then I wouldn't be able to go to sleep. So, um, yeah. So yeah, I think all of that stuff that you said is critically important. Yeah.
So the thing you mentioned there about sleep, I just want to kind of highlight something there, which is you asked a question or you posed a hypothetical question from an audience, right? That says, "Hey, but all that stuff seems to be like, do you really need that? It's kind of like simple stuff." And then you say, "Well, here's why," and then you gave the aspect of more likely to when you follow a routine, and these are the laws or the rules of the body, and that takes you to the point of somebody asked, like, "Well, why?" It's like because you're a physical being, a physical organism. It has rules, okay? And one of which is the whole kind of pattern. It likes to get in patterns, right? So hence you instantiate these patterns, and then you have more control, and it will follow suit and such. So it's not like you're just people treat their body like it was some kind of a spiritual thing. Like, okay, like, oh, it's just like, no, it has patterns, and you have
Let
to
me
go ahead.
can I say something about this? Okay. All right. So see, look, I'm more holistic with this. And now I came from a religious tradition that taught that you're a spirit, you have a soul, and you live in a body. Okay. And the reason that they framed it that way is they were actually creating this sort of hierarchy. They're saying the spirit is the highest thing, then the soul, then the body. And also, what they were implying is that the spirit is more important than the soul, is more important than the body. And then in that, they were saying that um, the spirit is more the essential you. The soul is more, it is maybe a little lesser the essential you. The body is not really you. And so, what that starts to do is it starts to develop this view that your physical form is not really you. It's not the real you. It's it's not this thing out here. I'm the person I am inside. It sets up the next logical steps are body positivity, right? And all of this kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm 800 pounds, but this is not the real me. You should see the beautiful person that I am inside. Well, this is all related. Everything
Identify as a banana.
right, right. Right. So no, all of it is you, and it all is saying something about you. And yes, as you said, there are rules. There's rules to this. And trying to create some scenario where your physical form is not a critical aspect of who you are, just as much who you are as your soul is, as your spirit is. That's the more holistic, and that's more the Eastern way of thought on this. Is it's all one, as opposed to this sort of Western analytical, um you know cutting, dissecting things and seeking to find ways to talk about these sort of parts separate from what it is that they collaborate, to create. See, the thing is that there is no me without my body, right? There is no me without my spirit. There is no me without my soul. Any one of those you take away and it doesn't exist. So you can, in a matter of speaking, you can talk about, well, I think that this aspect of my personality or who I am originates from this part of myself. And we can talk about that. That's fine. I'm not against that, but we must not confuse that with thinking that somehow you can actually take one of these aspects of us away and we wouldn't just be dead instantly.
There you go, dead instantly. Shattering a watch into 1,000 pieces in order to try to understand it, right? The errors of analysis, bad analysis, a lot of times, right? Breaking something in ways that is completely unnatural to what the hell the thing is, and such. Anyways, recharge your energy. Let's see how he gets us started here with number 8.
Charge your energy. So you've done all this stuff, but now the main thing that you want to do is to take appropriate breaks so that you don't burn yourself out. Now this involves conserving your energy during the workday and also recharging your energy at the end of the workday. And so what might that look like? It might look like taking a walking meeting rather than sitting down at your desk to take a meeting if you can. It might involve going for lunch, but instead of sitting down somewhere for lunch in front of your desk doing the work, getting a sandwich or something and then going for a little walk. It might involve taking a break every hour for 5 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, and going to get a cup of coffee, going to the toilet, chatting to some people, doing some stretches, doing whatever it takes to recharge your energy. Productivity is to an extent about time management. Like you have to create these containers of time. And if you don't, then, obviously time is a finite resource. But even though time is a finite resource, energy is a...
Okay. So one of these things is not like the others. Okay, so he says all of these things, go for a walk, 5 minutes, at the end of each hour, go for a cup of coffee. Look,
That will be,
there's chemicals in that. There's chemicals in that. So I just thought that was I mean, he's talking about stretching, and stuff like this. Okay, I got you. That's great. Go for a cup of coffee. Wait a minute. Hold up. What are we talking about? Are you talking about chemically induced ways? Are you going to act like the chemicals in the coffee is not actually what is giving you the energy? Or it's somehow on par with doing stretches? I'm just saying.
Yep. Well, yeah, so far the breaks and the stretches, and there's something called 20-20-20. Every 20 minutes, look 20 yards away. And this if you're someone that works on a screen, which is most people these days, right? Or if you're looking at something up close, look 20 yards away for 20 seconds. Not 20 yards, 20 feet away for 20 seconds. In other words, because that your eyes staying in a particular kind of focal range for a long time is energy consuming and such, right? And you're burnt, it's like you're burning out one particular fuse. So kind of look away, far away, right? And I kind of instituted that thing for me, particularly because my eyesight is very important, but it's not the best, right? So it's important to me, and it's not the best. So I do that 20-20-20 thing. And one of the ways in which I kind of actually operationalized it is I have this other screen that I kind of put my I have some stuff in Coinbase, right? Some crypto stuff, like, so it's volatile, it changes, a little bit. So there's a screen about 20 feet away that everyone, I look at, to kind of change that focus. But anyways, shout out to Don, always supporting, always. Thank you very much for that $5 super chat. Everybody else, feel free. Zongo, go ahead, drop $1, 50 cents. I don't know, whatever the lowest amount you can, as we talk about being productive here. And he is talking about the energy aspect, one of the most important aspects. I call it the bottom of the pyramid, right? What I do put at the top of the pyramid, Dr. Thunder, in other words, after you've done several things, after the body, there are a few other steps. But then at the top, then you might need the coffee, right? That's kind of the whole point of my pyramid scheme, is not to start with the unimportant stuff, like trying to put jet fuel in the car without water in the radiator, that kind of a thing. So let us continue with the energy thing here.
Chatting to some people, doing some stretches, doing whatever it takes to recharge your energy. Productivity is to an extent about time management. Like, you have to create these containers of time. And if you don't, then, obviously time is a finite resource. But even though time is a finite resource, energy is a renewable resource, and we can renew our energy throughout the workday and at the end of the workday by doing things that are appropriately recharging. Now, one easy way of doing this is to just make a list. And on one side of the list, ask yourself, what are the things that genuinely recharge your energy when you do them? And then on the other side of the list, ask yourself, what are the things you find yourself doing when you're drained of energy? So for example, for me, what are the things that recharge my energy? Well, going for a walk recharges my energy. Going to the gym often recharges my energy. Reading a book, playing the guitar. These are the things that recharge my energy. But when I'm actually drained, what are the things I end up doing? Scrolling TikTok, scrolling Instagram, scrolling Twitter, watching random YouTube videos. Those are the things I find myself doing, but it's weird because those things don't actually recharge my energy. And so this whole idea of recharging involves sort of nudging our behavior towards the things that we know give us energy, rather than the things that we feel like we can only do when we don't have any energy. And this energy thing is kind of weird because generally for an activity to be recharging, it does require some input of energy. Like if you're completely drained, then going for a walk would be the last thing that you want to do. But counterintuitively, going for a walk is actually going to generate way more energy than just plonking out on the sofa and scrolling through TikTok. Now, there's another really great way of recharging your energy, and that involves learning new things. And learning new things, for me, I find to be an incredible way of generating more energy, which gives me more energy to give to the other important things in life. But also, learning new things and expanding my knowledge and my understanding is generally a core value of mine, which is why I'm thrilled to say that this video is very kindly sponsored by Brilliant.
Yay! Very kindly sponsored indeed. And we have shout out to Zongo in the building. Very, very generous. Very, very generous. $20. Thank you very much, sir. And you were talking about the glasses, Zongo asking in the chat about using glasses to protect your eyesight. Yes, glasses are advisable to protect your eyes. And then, well, what does that mean? What's the mechanism? What are we talking about? We're talking about certain wavelengths that your particular whole arrangement of lens and retina and whatnot need to be protected from. Like we all know that blue light, for example, tends to be particularly blue, by the way, is a high wavelength stuff. It's kind of higher energy than red. We have this kind of spectrum of light from the blues to the reds, right? And blue is high energy stuff. So generally speaking, glasses of different tints or different kind of lenses of several kinds can help protect your eyes, so you can actually find these things and say, hey, I just need some, even if you don't need prescription lenses, if you will, something to protect my eyes. And you kind of see the one that you feel most comfortable with in terms of tint and whatnot. But thank you again for the super chat. And I don't know if you had anything to say about what he mentioned. I mean, he only barely mentioned a few of the things, the core body things, but then he went back to this whole kind of more of what he called joy prior, the guitars and the this and the that's and I just think it's a miscategorization here, generally speaking, in terms of him throwing all certain things under energy, which is like, okay. Yeah. Anything to say if I continue?
No, that's cool. I may double back, but no.
Yeah.
And Brilliant is the best way to learn maths, data science, and computer science interactively. I've been using Brilliant for learning since 2019. They've got incredible interactive courses on all of these different topics. And it's really built for busy people. If you're doing a lot of things in your life, but you do want to make time for this learning stuff, then even in just 15 minutes a day, you can make meaningful progress in advancing the skills of these subjects that you care about. For me personally, my favorite courses on Brilliant are the ones in the computer science category, because 10 years ago now, damn, long time ago, when I was applying to medical school, I was actually torn between medicine and computer science. And I ended up going with medicine, but I always had a part of me that was like, I kind of wish I'd learned computer science as well, just because it's really cool and because I enjoy tech and coding and computers. And so Brilliant has given me a great introduction to computer science and the fundamentals of programming and algorithms and an introduction to Python. And the way they teach these topics is so engaging and interactive that it genuinely makes it fun, it makes it feel good, and it makes it way more energizing to do a course on Brilliant than it does to do the alternative, which would be to scroll something on social media. Now, if you're interested in programming in particular, like I am, then they've got a brand new Thinking in Code course, which helps you think about how code can be used to solve real world problems. And one of the skills that I most attribute to any of the success I've had in life is learning how to code when I was quite young, because learning how to code changes the way that you look at the world. It helps you see the problems in the world and helps you realize what are the things that you can build solutions for. And all of the businesses I've built over the last 15 years of my life trying to make money on the internet and building businesses have fundamentally been downstream of learning to code, including this YouTube channel. Now, if you're interested in trying everything that Brilliant has to offer, then head over to brilliant.org/Ali Abdaal, and that link will give you a completely free 30-day trial. And if you're one of the first 200 people to go to that link, you'll also get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. So thank you so much, Brilliant, for sponsoring this video. But the final step in this 9-step framework is to reflect. And this might involve doing something like a daily reflection, which is like, how did my day go? Did I do my daily highlight? Did I do the thing that mattered to me? To what extent did I follow my intentions? It might involve doing something like a weekly
Now, as usual, did you throw up again, Dr. Thunder?
A little bit.
Oh, and here we go again. Another super chat. Bantu Ban Midnight Stream. Shout out to One Man Went to Mo. Shout out to One Man Went to Mo, dropping the pound sterling pond building. Okay, so the reflect thing. I see several things already regarding why this is quote unquote problematic. But as usual, right, I'm going to go and talk about what is viable in what he is saying, even though he may not even really be understanding it or really seeing it clearly. Now, when it comes to that retreat that you mentioned, Dr. Thunder, the retreat of you going to sleep, think of it as kind of shutting down, right? So you lock this thing down, you lock that, you turn off this light, you move back, you're kind of retreating back into your sleep there as a process. And then we said that that's a particular rule for the body and such and such and such, right? And the routines and so on. There's also a mental thing that you need to do with yourself. You see, part of your routine, it was the prayer, okay? And I suggest, generally speaking, or I'm saying that prayer is the aspect, okay, of this reflection that he's talking about. Now, what's that at its core? If we remove the prayer or remove the particulars, basically the way you retreat from the body and kind of calm the body down. The body has hormones shooting through it. There's certain nerves that go in certain ways. You mentioned stretching your back, Dr. Thunder, right? The back has gotten into certain contortions because you have to sit in a particular way, and you're tensing up your back because you have to finish this project and all those other kinds of things. Your mind is also doing things. Ain't that right, Dr. Thunder? Right? There's stuff going on in there. It's getting twisted up and into weird contortions as well. You need to be able to unwind that thing, right? There are several ways of doing it. You don't have to be a 10th grade high-level monk meditator, but hey, I do suggest that way. That, go down the path of self-awareness and being able to observe your mind, right? But I would suggest that prayer, which prayer, meditation, contemplation, that whole thing, right, is the essential aspect here. And I do believe that it is important for the mind in that kind of very mechanistic way that I described, about retreating and the body tensing up and doing things. Same with the mind. And I don't think any parts of what I've said is unrealistic. No one is like, oh, what do you mean my mind? Oh, what do you mean it gets in contortions and stuff, right? I think that everyone is at least self-aware enough to recognize that they do have a mind and that it does get into certain patterns that you need to be able to observe, do meditation, contemplation, prayer, whatever, right? So what do you think about this place that I'm going with what he's saying, even though he's going to put it in some kind of pop psychology feely way?
Well, just about how the prayers, the or meditation being the central, critical aspect here. Yeah, I agree, of course. Yep.
Good. Daily reflection. How did the day go? Did I do the thing that matters the most? Okay, yeah. And if you remember, one of the items was to set up the day in a particular way where you have one of these two things that you need to achieve that'll move things along. So yes, time to reflect upon those. But let him continue his little tirade here, if I can find.
Review, which is super helpful, and reflecting on things like, what were the top wins from last week? What were the biggest challenges? What were my biggest learning points? What are the top 3 things I want to get done next week? Have I blocked out time in the calendar for doing those things? And actually doing that even just takes 20 minutes, half an hour every single week is just absolutely game changing and does move the needle for making sure that the things that we're going to do next week are actually aligned with the direction that we want to go. And then this reflection piece might involve doing something like a quarterly review. Every 3 months, taking a look at the goals sheet and being like, hey, are these goals still the goals that I actually want to actively work towards? Because we're all pretty good at setting like annual goals, but then we don't look at those annual goals. We don't revisit them. Whereas revisiting them every quarter is remarkably helpful. And I always find that when I do that, I realize, oh, that goal that I set 6 months ago in January, honestly, that's no longer relevant. And so it doesn't really make sense for me to continue to work towards that thing, even though it's no longer relevant to my life. Like, people think that productivity is like this grindy type thing. But actually, a lot of thinkers, philosophers, psychologists have found over the years that meaning and fulfillment comes from the pursuit of goals that feel meaningful to us. And so if we can find a way to figure out what are the things that bring us meaning, and for the record, they don't have to be work things. They can be spending time with your family, all that kind of stuff. But like defining what are the things that bring us meaning and then just intentionally doing those things, that is what gives us a healthy, balanced, holistic life. And then there are a few optional extras you can do on top of that. You can learn to do stuff faster. This is sort of the philosophy of efficiency. You can learn keyboard shortcuts. You can learn to type faster, all of this. You can use funkier apps that like make it 1% more efficient for you to do something. Secondly, you can learn to add systems for leverage. You can use AI tools and other tools to boost your own productivity by using a system to leverage your own inputs. You could potentially even add people to the mix. If you have enough money, you can delegate things to people. If you're a business owner, you absolutely should delegate things to people. Fourthly, you can capture open loops. This is David Allen's book, Getting Things Done. It's all about capturing open loops in our mind into a task management system of some sort, and then clarifying those tasks and organizing.
So I guess his name is David Allen. Anyways, the book Getting Things Done. But yeah, so okay, so he's now listing a set of different kinds of things and tools that are out there. When he mentioned AI and talking about the voice activation, it's interesting that he mentioned code earlier. And I also, while he was mentioning code, I was thinking, are you interested in learning any languages? That's kind of like, would that be something that you would, or would you not be like, you're like, no languages for me? What are your thoughts on
it's this is an interesting question. So at this point in my life, what are the things that are going to be the most valuable for me to spend time doing? Is learning a new language at this point in my life one of those things? Now, this is not because I think that there's not a value in learning another language, in particular, depending on the language. But I will say that we have so many tools now to translate in real time that I'm not sure that the utility that I would derive from it would significantly supersede the utility that I already have. And maybe that means that working on something else in that amount of time that it would take me to learn another language may actually be a better play. Now, when I was younger, I mean, now I know ancient Greek. You know, I took ancient Greek when I was in college. Um, uh, you know, so that I could. I mean, it was part of my comparative religion minor, and I took 2 semesters of it. So at one point, I was pretty proficient. I mean, I'd have to do a lot of reviewing to get back to that, but that's not a language that's spoken. That's a dead language. Modern Greek is not the same as ancient Greek. So, yeah, you know, the whole Tower of Babel thing, right? So I think we have essentially recreated the Tower of Babel. I think mankind essentially has recreated the Tower of Babel. It's connected through the internet, and you have instantaneous translation services, like even embedded in your web browser. So I can go to a Russian website, and Google knows that my preference is to translate everything to English. And so it does.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I go to another place in the world, and I know, especially for like Passport Bros and stuff, it's a good idea to spend some time speaking the language, learning the language, and I think that still would be a good thing. But in a pinch, if I go to another language, I could take my phone with me, and people are talking, and my phone is in real time translating what's being said to me. So
Yeah.
It's incredible. The technology now is incredible. So I wonder if that would be the most efficient thing for me to spend time doing.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned time in your life, and you mentioned so the utility in terms of human connection, which would be the main thing. Like, okay, I'm gonna travel to Hong Kong to try to take over the financial industry, right? Then yeah, you might want to learn Chinese, right? Because
Right.
you're not gonna do that with Google Translate. So the reason I just kind of it just kind of popped into mind, but because he was talking about the language of coding, and also because he mentioned AI here. You see, basically interfacing with the computer is basically what this whole thing is about. Interfacing with the computer. There was a time when you really had to know code, and then all kinds of user interface improved, where you can now click and this and that, but still there is a barrier. And now moving into large language models and these co-pilots that they have, you're now being able to speak to the computer in natural language, and the computer is getting better at understanding natural language. And one of the ways in which this can help us is in being more productive, such as he had mentioned, right? So the whole voice to text thing, right? I don't know, is that something that you do? Do you dictate? I know that you do use things to read text to you, for example, right? I know that's part, that's
Yeah,
kind
I do that. I do that all the time. That's my
yeah.
preference. The articles, or you know, my preference is to get either audiobooks or to get um you know, books like on let's see, Kindle, because my iPad will just read. It'll just read the any of the Kindle books,
Mhm.
you know. And I'm you know, every person that is sighted and also has their hearing is some combination of oral and um visual. Their style of learning is some combination of oral and visual, right? So, but you will tend to lean one direction more than the other. And if you can figure out what that is, it's you know, it can be a real aid to you. I've discovered that for me, and this makes sense as a musician. Um, I am I'm a strong oral learner. I can learn things visually, of course, and often is the case that you don't have a choice. But if I can listen to something, I tend to retain it.
Mhm. So processing data, and this is more into the future, but we're seeing the beginnings of it. We're right at the beginning of it, right? This idea of AI improving efficiency, getting rid of a few jobs in terms of knowledge workers and whatnot. But well, we'll see how it goes. But it'll be interesting to see, perhaps in a couple of years, where the voice activated task and data analytics will get to. In other words, being able to manipulate data by just simply talking to your computer, saying, "Hey, correlate this and show me a chart for that," or go ahead and order this particular, give me 5 menus from the best Japanese restaurants here, and maybe even tell it to select 2 things each, and you're just kind of give me a sampling and then let me see. And then you're like, I don't like this one, I don't like that one, so on and so forth. The idea of being able to not just you're talking about, learning with your ear. So if you when you get to the point where you're listening, and but you can also just talk in a very natural way, right, to a computer, such as, book me this particular ticket and get me this hotel from these dates to these dates, and I want tickets to this concert as well, and email it to this, right? That will be, when we get there, and some people are at the forefront typically of kind of adapting these kinds of technologies and trying to force from my perspective, force it there by using a lot of the new apps that are coming out now, but they're still in their early stages. Anyways, just wanted
let me say something to this. And I mean, I have voice control stuff in my studio, like my lights and changing the colors of the lights and stuff like that, turning the studio, the whole thing on as a combination of procedures, turning it off, so all of that kind of stuff is sort of, I can do that. I have the capability to do that. I have the capability to do pretty accurate dictation. Pretty good dictation software right on my computer. I've got some good dictation stuff on my iPad even. I can dictate stuff on my phone. It does a good job. I mean, but here's the question about this, because I think that people think that when that technology gets better, that they will use it a lot. It's actually not particularly natural for you to say in a command through verbal commands what it is that you want. It's actually not that natural. It's not as natural as people might think it is.
Yeah, let me try to build on what you're saying here. So basically, the idea that you're just going to be this maestro that can instantaneously say what you need to do in the exact sequence in order to achieve a task is wrong. Let me give like an example. I have a particular project I need to complete. It involves doing some kind of design and such. Okay. But I have to, before I even start, kind of sit down, depending on my particular mood. If I'm being in this mood where the pre-planning mood, I'll sit down and I'll say, okay, well, what is exactly the goal here? Okay. The goal is I'm going to send, in other words, the output. The output is I need an email to this person. Okay. It's going to have this particular PDF. And then I'm going to need to email this other person in the warehouse about this and that and the other, and this manufacturer. Okay. Now, what did I need in order to achieve this? Okay, I need this particular Excel sheet. I need this data, that data, and this other blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. And then what are the steps in order to get there? I think, okay, the first thing I need to do, I need to get the information from this particular sheet, right? Which has to do with the weight of this particular exhaust system, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. So no, that is work, is what Dr. Thunder is saying, right? That's what you're saying. Like you have to do all that work. After you do that, then you can say, okay, computer, open up this spreadsheet, find the information about the weight for that particular exhaust system, and then do blah, 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 all the way down to the email, let's say, right? But you're not just going to wake up and just do that, right?
And then the question is other than certain specific things, actually searching out certain information and putting it in a palatable format, other than stuff like that, which would take some more time, how many of those things that you just sat down to figure out what it is that you need to say to the machine would be just faster for you to just do them?
Yeah. So there's a kind of like a payoff thing for where, for example, a lot of the voice activated kind of servicing, like, Siri can order food for you, or it can do certain things, but it's still clunky in the sense that you have to have a particular sequence of statements that you say, and then it's like, what's the payoff? It's easier for me to just do it this way, right? The other way. So there's been this issue of the payoff not being large enough. Now we have to the goal, right? The dream is that AI will get to the point where it'll know things so much and be so natural and this and that, where the payoff now will be will change. So, but that's the basic equation there. But so
I
let's
was
play the.
watching.
Go ahead.
I was watching something on 60 Minutes, and it was like over the last 10 years or something, all of the um specials on AI or something um that they've done, all these segments. It was like compiled in one video. It was pretty interesting. Um and so one of the things that they were saying, and it still sounds like they're saying, is see, the more you develop something, the more you realize there is to go as far as actually getting this thing there. Right? So there's all of these intangible factors, and you keep facing them, and then it, you sort of address that issue, and then you discover that there's 10 more issues that you didn't consider, and then you try to deal with those, and now there's 100 more, and now there's 1,000 more issues. And sure, the process by which to solve those issues becomes faster, but you keep multiplying these issues, all this nuance, this little stuff. And so some folks believe that this AI is never going to develop to the extent that this sort of futuristic way where it it has eliminated all of the um mechanical, like um unnatural, it's always going to seem like a machine. Like that's what some have that's the view that they have of this. I don't know
Y-
that that's necessarily my view, but I understand why they come to that conclusion.
Yes. That particular the conclusion, that particular opinion aside, what you mentioned about moving closer to a goal and then seeing that there are many issues that you did not foresee. One kind of rough hand of that in way is in the sense that we know that typically the last 15% of a project takes as much time as the first 85%, right? The way that's how things tend to go. And shout out to the lead attorney. I think he gave an example of like it's like a magnification. I'm paraphrasing and explaining something that he said once. Basically, as you move closer to the target, you're going to see more of the imperfections, right? So you have this kind of a broad picture of like, oh yeah, I'm going to go here, right? And as you go closer to there, as you think of a magnifying, right? You're like, oh crap, there's so much crap on the way here, right? I didn't, my initial big, low resolution, high level map did not show that this particular mountain rocky ridge was going to be that crazy. I just drew a line like, yeah, I'm going to cross this mountain, right? That kind of a thing. So yeah, as you zoom in, the imperfections grow. But to the other end, there's a tangent about this idea of nuances increasing. The thing is, this kind of when wherever the technology is going to become very quickly the baseline. In other words, it's not going to give you an edge anymore that you can quote unquote tell X to do Y for you, right? Because everybody's going to be able to do that very soon. at the same, that kind of a thing. And it just kind of normalizes again, right? So that is a kind of analogous in a way, in terms of getting closer and closer to this perfection that then you never quite reach, in the sense that never quite give you an edge. We just normalize again, and so on. So that speaks to the quote unquote efficiency edge that it might give some people, but it's not really going to give anybody, because everybody's just going to start using it. But anyways, let us see here.
Them and then doing them. And you can do stuff like Building a Second Brain, which is the book by my friend Tiago Forte, which is all about building a personal knowledge management system for digital note-taking so that you can maximize your creative output. Like, these are all really good things for productivity, but I feel like these are all add-ons to the main thing. And the main thing is basically figure out where you want to go, make time for those things, sit down and actually do the thing, do it consistently for a long time, and then reflect appropriately on like how you're getting there and whether you want to change direction along the way. Now, if you enjoyed this video, then I would love it if you could pre-order my book, please. There'll be loads of bonuses, link down below. And if you want to...
Yeah, shout out to him. Guess we're going to start landing the plane. But he did, and for this particular episode here, he talked about the joy thing, right? And he talked about energy and then the reflection, right? The joy thing basically being about making the external environment compatible, suitable. Okay, go work at the cafe, play the kind of music that you'd like, arrange your particular workspace in the way that you would, that's good for you. If you're particular sensitive eyes wise, then there's certain kind of greens, which are natural colors, generally speaking, don't bother our eyes, and it makes sense, right? So if you have the forest and rivers type of colors going, it tends to be very easy on our eyes, that kind of a thing. That was this whole joy thing. And then energy makes perfect sense, right? And we find that fundamentally focusing on your body and understanding that that's the main thing. Did you sleep, exercise, diet, hydration, okay, stretch, get the blood pumping, do jumping jacks, whatever it takes to make sure that the engine is running smoothly. And when it comes to the hydration and the diet and the exercise part, that's not something that, that's a whole routine, that's a whole lifestyle, right? So it's not just I guess I'll just no. You have to get in the groove in order to benefit from the energy gains, efficiency gains that these kinds of things such as diet and exercise give you, right? And then the reflection aspect was also mentioned, which we talked a little bit about. But Dr. Thunder, do you have any closing thoughts as we wrap this up?
Well, so I do believe that okay, so obviously we thought this was this was going to be positive towards maybe someone unlocking, or thinking differently about productivity. I think that this 9 steps is particularly distilled. I think he basically addresses the issues. There's certain things based on probably personality differences, personality types, where there's some cringe-worthy moments. One of the moments was actually this moment when he walks behind one of the other people, workers, and he's like massaging his shoulder, and he's kind of like,
come on, you would love that, Dr. Thunder, if people massage your shoulders during meetings and pat you on the head.
Yeah, you're right. I've never been in a fight, but that's that might be the time for me to get in a fight. But also like he's like, it looks like he's singing or something, with the expression on his face, during that moment. And it's like, he's like, and I'm thinking like a little bit uncomfortably close to the other guy's ear or something. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? So some of that kind of stuff, I'm never going to be okay with that. I'm never going to need or want or not be irritated by the idea of logging on to some sort of panel or something where everybody's sharing productivity tips or something in real time. I don't know that I don't know that that's going to be, no, I'm sorry. Productivity tips wouldn't be bad. Motivation strategies. Oh, this is what motivates me. When I just go for a walk and I do whatever, and then I'm just filled with energy. So, and I have to just not be negative and push those negative thoughts out and breathe in the positive energy. And dude, if I have to listen to anybody talk like that, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I can't do it. I would rather people face the fact that they're not, that most of the time they're not going to be inspired. Now deal with it. What are you going to do now? You don't have time to log into, a 20-person session where they're sharing about motivation. You don't have time for that. What are you going to do now? You need strategies while you're sitting alone by yourself and you can't depend on anybody else. Can you produce or not?
There you go. There you go. There you go. Self-reliance indeed. And shout out to the very generous sponsors of the show. The ever-present, effervescent one man went to Mo with the pound sterling. Shout out to Zongo. He's a dusty Ghanaian, I believe. One of those village people. Shout out to Mick, Don the Key. Always supporting. Thank you very much. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last part of the 3-part series on the productivity here on Getting Ish Done, right? With Ike and Dr. Thunder every Wednesday. And next Wednesday, we will be back with another powerful episode on how to get your act together, be better, achieve better, do better, help better, and all that good stuff. And with that, peace. We're out.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.